But if you start looking for Galatia, you'll run into some issues that the scholars, there was a scholarly debate for years. There's still somewhat of a scholarly debate about who are the Galatians. Because you see, the Galatians actually are Celts. They are Celtic people ethnically who migrated. And of course, they were the ones who became known as the Gauls as well. And so Great Britain and northern France, and as they moved westward, actually one portion of the Celts came and they took over what is the northern part of modern-day Turkey in about, 300, 400 BC, somewhere around there-ish. And they established a city and somewhat of a kingdom of Galatia. And they were the ethnic Galatians. They were overrun in, 200 BC-ish, somewhere around there, and conquered. Of course, Greece and Rome conquered all of that area. And by the time of Jesus, it was Rome was in control. But the Romans actually established a province called Galatia. And it encompassed the area that was known as Galatia, the kingdom, before it was overrun by I don't know who. But then they established a much larger region called Galatia. And there's been this debate about, well, who are the Galatians? Paul's writing to it. It's one of the things you want to ask yourself when you read one of the epistles of Paul. Oh, this is Paul to the Philippians. Well, who in the world are the Philippians? Why would Paul write to them? Was he ever there? Does he know them? What happened when he was there? And that's why we're going to dig in here. Now, just to let you know where I stand on this scholarly debate, is I agree with what most scholars have gotten to now, which is that Paul was writing to the people of the whole region of Galatia, but especially those in the southern portion. Now, if you can put your geography hat on for just a moment and imagine the area which today is Turkey, modern-day Turkey, which is at the westernmost point of the continent of Asia, and sits, the northern part's got the Black Sea, the southern part, southern and western, hits the Mediterranean Sea. If you can jump across the land bridge, tiny isthmus there, and you'll get into Europe. So you basically have Turkey and Greece right next to each other, which seems appropriate, doesn't it, for gravy? All right, that was a reach, I know. Okay, groaning or laughter is appropriate. Okay, but that's modern day Greece, and it's kind of this big ovalish kind of, if you can imagine that, with Europe to the west, and then the Middle East and the Far East to the east. So modern-day Turkey borders Syria and other nations off that way. Okay, well, if you take that kind of big ovalish-looking thing and you divide it into generally three pieces, north to south, the first piece to the west is what during the time of the Romans was known as Asia, the province of Asia. And so when Jesus dictates the letters in the first chapter of Revelation to the 7 churches which are in Asia, that's what he's talking about. Not what we think of as Asia as the whole continent, but the Roman province of Asia. And if you look later at a map, you'll find all 7 of those cities there in what is now Western Turkey. Then there's the next slice over going east would be Galatia. Now I'm talking about the biggest things. There were other smaller provinces sprinkled here and there if you look at the map. And the scholars aren't exactly sure of where the boundary line should be at any point in time because they didn't have GPS or lasers or anything else to figure all that stuff out. But that big center section was Galatia. And in the northern part is where that original city was founded in that kingdom. But the southern part, if you look at Paul's missionary journeys, his first missionary journey, he and Barnabas went from Antioch, went to the easternmost point of the Mediterranean Sea, sailed over to Cyprus. The first place they went, Barnabas was from Cyprus. They evangelized there, and then they went north and they landed in a smaller province. I forget whether that's Pamphylia or Cilicia or one of those. And then they headed north and they got into Galatia, because Galatia comes all the way down almost to the Mediterranean Sea. And cities that we'll encounter here in the book of Acts in just a minute is where he went. And then they headed back. And then on his next 2 missionary journeys, he took a different route but went to those same cities. So it makes sense to me and to a number of scholars, not to put me in the same category as scholars, but it makes sense to me that he was talking about the whole province, and he was focused in on those southern cities where he had been. He knew about them, because we're going to see when we get into the book, boy, he starts out right from the beginning with, hey, in your face, what's going on there?